All guests on ZASLOW Show 2.0 brought to us by the official beer of the program, Johnny Cuba, European roots with a Caribbean soul, a refreshing German lager in a can. Pick up a six-pack of Johnny Cuba now at your local Sedanos, Presidente, Winn-Dixie, Fresco y Mas. Remember, of course, always drink responsibly. And don't forget Johnny Cuba's mantra, stay tranquilo. And joining us here, I reached out to our pal, Brett Romberg, University of Miami Sports Hall of Fame, Remington Award winner. For those who don't know, that means there was no center in the nation that was better than him that year. He kept Ken Dorsey clean. If Ken Dorsey ever fell to the ground, it was not Brett Romberg's fault. Brett Romberg joining us here on the program today. Good morning, Brett. Hello.
Morning. How are you, man? How you doing?
I'm good. So I wanted to get you on for a few minutes here and get your thoughts about what happened to FSU, because I feel like you and your pals have probably waited 23 years to be able to give an FSU a little, how does it feel? So we'll talk about that part in a second. I want to hear what you guys went through back then. And for folks who don't know, of course, back in 2000, which was really like the first year of that 3-year stretch where the Canes probably should have won 3 consecutive national titles. And the stupid, the point system, the BCS, had FSU mathematically ahead of UM, even though FSU's only loss was to UM. And of course, UM's only loss was very early in that year, a game at Washington. So the Canes got left out. FSU lost 13-2 to Oklahoma. I think we all know the Canes would have scored more than 2 points that night, Brett Romberg.
No doubt in my mind, we would have scored probably about 35, especially the way that our offense was rolling, man. Yeah, we were doing well.
So what when FSU got left out, are you able to like put aside your bias for a moment and say, wow, they got fucked? Or did you believe that, yeah, you know what, not the same team without Jordan Travis?
Again, when it comes to the school, the situation, I hate them more than anything. That's my biggest rival. That's the knife in my heart. Every single time I hear the song, I see the colors. Like, it doesn't matter. You look at a truck on the street, I don't even want to go near the truck just because of the color of its paint. So when it comes to the actual school itself, despised. But when it comes to the kids that are out there grinding and doing everything they possibly can and are told to do, and they still come up short like that, it's tough, man. It makes the whole mentality of collegiate athletics switch and pivot a little bit. It becomes almost what I hated about the NFL, which was the politics behind it. Now it's streamed and gotten all the way into the collegiate athletics. Before it was kind of like known but unspoken of. Now it's just clearly spoken of, and it's super transparent. And we get to realize how political the game of football now is actually becoming.
I hate the idea where the committee is essentially telling you that they don't believe FSU is going to be as good with Tate Rodemaker at quarterback, because he would be back and available by the semifinal. And it's like, why is it their job to tell us how they think that they're going to play? That part bothers me.
That's so sad, man, because again, everybody loves the Cinderella stories, right? Everybody loves the underdog stories where a kid that wasn't supposed to play ends up playing and leads his team to a national title. I heard somebody on ESPN talk about that years ago with, I believe it was Michigan. Similar situation happened over there. And then I wouldn't go exactly the same, but Ohio State a couple years ago, they had that same situation with Jalen, a couple different other players, that you're just having a rotational system at quarterback, and you never really know. And again, in the NFL, it's the any given Sunday situation. And college, it used to be like that. It used to be the any given Saturday, any team can win. You never know. They could possibly scheme. Their offensive coordinator can create some hell of a game plan that he might pull out of his ass for that particular game. It's sad to see that the kids, whatever they have done to be where they are currently in that position of undefeated, which is, I don't give a shit what your schedule is. It's a very difficult and daunting task to go undefeated no matter what. And I feel bad for the kids. I don't feel bad that they made that decision to go to FSU, but I feel bad at the decision that the committee has put forth. People that, for the most part, really don't know shit about football half the time. They've never played it. They don't understand it. They're just going based off of what they feel or think might happen in the future.
And here's also the weird part. It's FSU that they're leaving out. It's not some buster program. Like, it's not, for instance, UCF from a few years ago that was undefeated. Right. It's Florida State, who for
Yeah.
my entire childhood was a top 5 team every single year. It's FSU that they decided, oh, you're undefeated, still not good enough. Like, that part's crazy.
Yeah, man, and especially with the athletes, going into the season, if you would have told me that Norvell would have had, Mario Cristobal pinned up against the ropes and Florida State would be going this well, there's no way in hell. We saw a glimpse of it last year. Then it trickled over and it became consistent and even compounding and getting better and better and better this year. Um, Obviously, we kind of are a little bit stagnant at this point in time. I know we're getting better. I know we have position groups on our team that are doing a lot better than what they used to be, but it didn't catapult the way that Norvell's catapulted that program. So, I've also heard somebody say about the good thing about Florida State now is, you have your head coach in line, being able to find ways, find players, recruit wise, schematic wise. They got a good coaching staff over there. So it's not a total bust for Florida State going into this bowl game. Again, you see the monster they got to play, and they got to play him down here. And again, I look back on when we got snubbed against the Gators, and I look back on it, and I remember how pissed off the amount of chip on the shoulder that we had going against the Gators, and then whooping their ass in Bourbon Street, and then beating them up on the field, and they had some real badass players at that point in time, but it wasn't even about Florida. So, and I know it's tough, and I know they're not looking for advice. And especially nowadays with these kids that aren't even playing in bowl games anymore, I would really band together and make this thing a statement game for the Florida State program. Are they going to beat Georgia? My guess is probably no. Are they going to get their asses handed to them? I don't think so. And not if they go into this game with that mindset of, I'm extremely pissed off. We deserve better. We deserve to be in the playoff rounds. We deserve that opportunity. Lay a stamp, man. Like this is Florida State's opportunity to just put that stamp, that letting them know that Florida football is back. And it's sad to say that Florida State has to be that flag in the front that's showing that Florida football is back. But yeah, this could be a game that players can really showcase their ability against that top 10, top tier collegiate athletic program that's been for the last 15 years probably one of the pinnacles.
So by now you've seen the video where, they're all in the room and they're watching the selection show, and then it shows that they got left out and they're heartbroken. You could see. And I mean, some of the kids get up, they walk out like they're distraught. What do you remember what it was like for you guys? Like, now back then they only announced 2 teams or whatever. It was BCS 1 versus 2. Like, do you remember what it was like for you guys back in 2000?
Yeah, man. We ironically enough, I think we were at Joaquin's brother's house, Tony's house, and it was me, him, Bib, Shirk. There was a group of us that were over there, and I think we just got done shaving Shirko for like $50, bare ass naked. But once the news came out, once it was announced, it was heartbreaking. It really was. It was deafening. It was a few days of guys screaming "fuck the world." It was pretty bad, especially the guys that were there through the shit, that were going into their senior year, the 4-year guys, the Ed Reeds of the crew. That was frustrating. Dan Morgan and all those other guys too. You felt really bad because we've done everything. Again, we busted our ass. Our summers were so intense. We did everything we can to earn that opportunity, and for a computer to come out and decide. I don't know what's worse, having powder puff guys come out there with loafers and cologne on, telling which school is able to go ahead and play for a national title, or a computer system that seemed to be faulted as well. So again, life isn't always tulips and daisies and roses. You know what I mean? So I'm wondering how this Florida State team is going to respond. The coaching staff, I clearly know what the coaching staff is going to be all about. This is revenge. Like, this is going to be you fucked me. Now get ready to go ahead and showcase maybe some guys becoming very, very violent on our program. And
is that what Butch did for you guys after the announcement?
Oh yeah, it was no holds barred. It was Butch basically said, "How are you guys going to react?" Like they took the parental role of trying to be the mature, but they also poked the bear. Like they literally laid out nuggets for us of how you guys going to respond, or what are you going to do about it? And back then we wanted nothing but blood. Like the sights and the visors and whatever those horse blinders are, on the horses. That's what we had on from that moment on. The minute we got screwed, that's what would happen. So hopefully, the same situation, same mentality Norvell puts on that football program over there. And these guys, all of them participate, all of them go out there. And I'm not saying they're going to go out there and try to hurt Georgia. Obviously, because Georgia's probably going to move on to the next round. But my guess is they're going to try to make a statement. And if a couple Georgia Bulldogs get hurt, I think that's going to end up happening.
Now, for folks who don't remember, that was, of course, you guys had the big fight on Bourbon Street with the Gators. How much was that? Because, all right, you hate the Gators compared to you guys are angry that you're even in this game.
We would go out at night on Bourbon Street, and all of us were missing curfew every single freaking night. It was unbelievable. We missed curfew every night in New Orleans. Position coaches wanted to send guys home. Like I know Kehoe wanted to send me home because I kept missing curfew. But it was me and McKinney that were coming in past curfew all the time. And Butch Davis was like, "Are you fucking stupid? It's your starting center and your left tackle. They're not going anywhere. And if they want to stay out again tonight, let them stay out again tonight."
Was that part of your plan? I'm going to make sure that I come home at the same time as McKinney, because between the two of you, they can't send both of you home.
Well, brother, it was all the starters that were coming home. Like we were literally in the streets, whether you were chasing tail or you were looking to rumble. And we knew Florida was on there. We knew Florida was walking up and down the street. Unfortunately, Al Blades and a couple of the guys got out a little ahead of themselves and got a drink poured on his head. And then once they saw the cavalry rolling in, that's when Al started screaming murder. And I don't know if anybody's ever heard of, you heard about the hit stick and bust dick chants. You hear about on the 30 for 30 where Al's singing, music. But Al was always that guy. And he would always scream, and I guarantee it was from his brothers, Benny and Brian. Back in the day, they'd be like, murder. There was a thing they would do. Mystical used to do it all the time, like the No Limit Soldiers, and they would just start screaming murder. And then all of a sudden, you heard that, you go run. You start running now, like head. And the other guys were like, head for the hills, bro, because we're coming. So it was an interesting week in New Orleans, that's for sure.
So 23 years later, FSU now gets left out the way that you guys get left out. Now, of course, it's not FSU get left out for That would have been the ultimate revenge, but right. It's FSU getting left out. So did you get any messages from your old teammates where it's like, about fucking time?
Yeah, it only took 23 years of that karma stick to beat the hell out of you. And what's sad is because, now at this stage in my life, I'm mixed in with a lot of different parents that went to a lot of different universities. Of course, we have our diehard parents that they're all about it. They loved it. It made them warm and fuzzy throughout the holiday season so far, that the fact that FSU got snubbed, because the majority of them are my age and they all recall of what happened back in 2000, 99, 2000. So, but there's also the group of dads that are Florida State alums. And there's one of them in particular that actually used to play back in the mid 90s for Florida State. So, he was sobbing about it. He was trying to cry on my shoulder about it. Like I was going to try to give him some sympathy for that. But yeah, I'm not going to cry over that. That's for sure. I'm going to smirk a little bit, but again, I do feel bad for the kids.
But thank God, of course, next year, you guys just took care of business by not losing any games, because otherwise, I mean, I'm sure you still feel, all right, we should have at least won back-to-back, probably should have won 3 in a row. But at least because you did what you did the very next year, it's not something you wake up and think about every single day.
Yeah, I think that was one of the things exiting that game after the Sugar Bowl is immediately after we did what we did. There was a couple rumors and a couple things of, we might be considered, possible candidates for the national title or splitting, or there was some conversation of that after we whooped their ass. But it was more along the lines of, now we begin. Like, there was no rest. There was no go home and take a little time off. There was no go home and enjoy this victory. It was, guys, get in the goddamn mini Mima, because we drove to the Sugar Bowl, me, Joaquin, Sherko, and Juice. We drove there in Joaquin's mom's minivan, and it was get back on the minivan, drive back to South Florida, don't take any time off, and just get right back to the weight room and just go. And it was a collective agreement by everybody in that locker room after that Sugar Bowl game. We send off the seniors. Thank you for what you did, and now it's our turn to take the reins, and we hit the ground running, man. Like January, we were ready to get right back at it, and we had a grudge. We still had the chip on the shoulder from getting snubbed.
Great job, Brett. Good catching up with you, man. I appreciate you hanging out with us today.
Oh, always a pleasure, man. Thanks for having me on.